Hello everybody and welcome to the first video in the LEGO Mindstorms NXTG series. My name is Drew Vire and I'm happy to teach you all about LEGO Mindstorms. This is the very start screen. When you create a robot for the first time, you will want to program it and give it some intelligence. After you open up the software icon, that's this icon right here on my desktop, you will enter this window. Over here you have some very simple commands. You can open a new program, or you can open a recent program, or you can create one of your own. Let's create one of our own. When naming your programs, you do not want to choose something simple like Untitled 2 or My First Program. You want to choose something that's meaningful, that tells you exactly what the robot's going to do. I'm going to name this Forward because it's going to drive my robot forward. I highly recommend placing a number afterwards, so that way you know 1, 2, 3, or 4. That way you know what version it is. If this is your very first crack at it, you should put a 1. If it's your second or third revision of the program, put a 2, 3, and keep increasing the number as you make changes to it. When I hit the go button, I hit the go button. It'll take me over to this screen here after I click it, and I come over here to the main interface. Down here in the lower right-hand corner are two buttons. This question mark button is for your help, is to help you. When you put a block, let's just say I put this block on, and I just hover my cursor over it. This block down, if you look down in the right-hand corner now, you see that there's a short description of the block, and I can also click the link and get more help online. In the lower right-hand corner are these 5 buttons, which basically give you the ability to interact with your robot. The down arrow is called the download button. This is the most commonly used button, and it is how you get your programs onto your NXT. The middle button is called the download and run button. It is how you get programs onto your NXT and then run them right away. So right after it's put on the robot, it begins to run. In case your robot starts to do something crazy that you don't want it to do, you can press the stop button, assuming that your robot's still connected. The download and run selected means that you can select 3 or 4 blocks out of your program and just run those to test if it works before you run the whole thing. The last button is the NXT window. This is how you check and see whether your robot is connected or not and how much memory it has. This blue start square is where you put your first block. The blocks are basically lines of code that tell the robot exactly what to do. When you eat breakfast, you may not think about it, but your mind is running through a series of code, thinking how exactly to lift the spoon from your cereal to your mouth or drink your milk, things like that. So you have to tell the robot exactly what you want it to do. That's where these things on this side come in. Down here, there are 3 categories that you can pick, but we're going to stay only on the green circle one. The first block is called the move block. During this block, when you use this block, the robot will automatically move forward, backward, left, or right. If I were to drag it out, I put it on this blue start square. This 3 highlighted blocks tell you exactly where it's going to go. The port is what NXT port your robot your motors are connected to. Always make sure to use the B and C ports, not the A and B ports. That's a common misconception. The B and C ports are reserved for driving, and the A port is often used as a robot arm. The NXT motors can turn it either forwards, backwards, or not turn at all. If you choose to go forwards, your robot will move forward, assuming that you've chosen a straight path. And if you choose backward, the opposite will happen. Stopping automatically brakes your motor, and as you'll see, all of these other options are immediately disabled. Steering is how your robot actually turns. Depending on what type of steering your robot may have, you may choose to decide to turn different degrees. Typically, the most common are all the way to the left or all the way to the right. This does not mean that your robot will take a U-turn, but rather will try to turn at the highest amount possible, at most amount in place, meaning that it won't try to make an arc, but rather will try to turn right on the spot. Power is how fast your robot goes. It's actually how much power will be supplied to the wheels, but that does have a correlation with the amount of speed that it has. Power can also does not have to relate to speed. It can be mechanical power too, as in the amount of work that as in the robot can do more stuff, like lift heavier objects. Duration is how long your robot's going to take. A rotation is a rotation of the motor. What that means is that your robot will turn either one rotation forward and move. Degrees is the amount of degrees that the robot turns. If rotations are full, then degrees are sort of fine. Seconds are pretty self-explanatory. They're just the amount of time that it takes. And the last one's unlimited. Unlimited doesn't mean your robot will move forever, but it does mean that it will move on for some time, assuming that you have the right conditions around it. The next action is basically how you want your robot to end this block. It could either do a hard stop, or it could cut off power to the motor and just let it slide to a stop. The record and play block basically allows your robot to record and then do another action. When it records an action, it basically is recording what happens to a motor. So if you have it record the motor move 3 times. If you select the A motor, for example, and you move the A motor 3 times, when you put another record and play block, you can have it play whatever text you put into it. You can also set the duration for it. Record and play blocks aren't actually that commonly used, but they're fun to play around with and investigate. A sound block and a display block are sort of two opposites. Are not exactly opposites, but more like complements. A sound block plays an audio file. NXT has some of its audio files like common phrases. See if we can play some of them. Here's one that says, "Thank you." Here's one that says, "Hello." Here's one that says, "Mindstorms." Another thing that this block can do is play tones. You can choose to do A, B, C, D, E notes, as well as choose durations for them. You can also have it play at different volumes, and you can have it repeat the sound in a somewhat annoying fashion. Wait for completion, that is usually selected when you want your robot to wait, play a sound, and then continue on. A display block displays an image, text, drawing, or it can also have the option of clearing the display. NXT has a lot of images that you can select based on how you want your robot to interact with its surroundings. You can also choose to write some text. Or you can have it draw something. You can draw something, or you can manually draw it, or you can have the robot draw it. You can also reset the display and clear it completely. Wait blocks are basically conditions that tell your robot to not do anything until something is satisfied. For example, if I have a time wait block, then the robot's going to wait for however much time I set here. If I set 52 seconds, it's going to wait for 52 seconds. If I set 3.14159265835 seconds, then it's going to wait for approximately pi seconds. Pi is 3.14159265835. Wait block is also you can choose to wait for certain sensors, like a touch sensor or a light sensor, sound sensors. Play around with these blocks. You can choose, for example, the ultrasonic or distance sensor can sense objects that are far away or close. You can play with this one and try to have it go forward until it senses a wall. And then it can turn around and stop. A loop block basically repeats anything that's inside of it until the condition on the outside is met. So this loop, for example, would run forever, and it can also be based on sensors or time or a certain number of times, or it can be based on some sort of logic that happens within the loop. The last block is a switch block. Switch blocks are very important in robotics because they're how robots make decisions. A switch block basically does the condition in the top line if the condition is if the condition over here is true, and the condition in the bottom line if it's false, and the action in the bottom line. For example, if the in this case, if the touch sensor connected to port 1 was pressed, the robot would move forward. But if it was not pressed, or it was just bumped, then it would move backward. The key thing with NXTG is to just play around with it for some time. This is called the Common Blocks tab. Remember that you can always replay this video, as well as use this more help down here to assist you when you're programming. In a future video, we'll talk about what's happening on this tab, as well as what's happening on this tab. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.